Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Matthew, your librarian for the San Marcos campus. Joining me in this presentation is Sophia, your circulation manager for the San Marcos campus. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us today in our session on the Mindful Researcher, an introduction to mindfulness techniques. As I'm sure some of you can agree, the research process can be loaded with a variety of emotions and experiences, from a sense of satisfaction and achievement and enjoyment, to also feelings of stress, anxiety, and being overwhelmed. Different parts of the research process can instigate different responses, whether we're talking about developing your topic, searching the scholarly literature, designing your study, or writing the final manuscript. This session will hopefully provide some insight on how to address the more negative emotions related to research, utilizing everyday mindfulness practices and behaviors that you can incorporate into your own academic life. As a kind of agenda to this session, we'll talk briefly about what mindfulness means and how it can impact us. We'll cover what mindfulness techniques and behaviors might work best for you, engage in some fun, informative activities provided by Sophia, and then conclude with a live guided meditation that I've written and will perform about searching the literature. Before we start delving into the specific mindfulness techniques, perhaps it's best we first briefly explore the question, what is mindfulness exactly? You might have already a definition or a working concept on what mindfulness means to you, yet interesting enough, there still isn't a clearly defined concept of mindfulness in the Western cultures. The word mindfulness was first translated into English back in 1881 by a British scholar, fun history fact there, originating from the word sati, which refers to the Buddhist practice of watching things, quote unquote, come to be and quote unquote, pass away. But in the decades that followed, alternative translations were offered and debated, such as mental activity, thought, and earnest meditations, before they settled on mindfulness as the preferred translation. Even today, though, the scholarly literature on the topic of mindfulness continues to differ on a common definition. Working definitions that have been offered vary from controlling or quote unquote suppressing unwanted experiences, to running on automatic pilot, to unintentionally allowing the mind to wander. For the purpose of our session, though, we will rely on the most widely used definition of mindfulness, which draws from the works of Jon Kabat-Zinn, the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, and one of the contemporary leading figures on mindfulness-based interventions in medicine. He defines mindfulness as the following: the awareness that emerges through paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally to the unfolding experience moment by moment. We believe that this definition best fits the contextual experience of doing research, especially as you explore the potential of your research question, whether in the existing literature or in your own data. Perhaps one of the most important things to realize about mindfulness is its accessibility, with many scholars framing mindfulness as an essential human phenomenon. For example, you don't necessarily need to be a Buddhist to be mindful. Bhante Gunaratana, a Sri Lankan Theravada Buddhist monk, explained, quote, "Mindfulness is not limited by any condition. It exists to some extent in every moment, in every circumstance that arises." Jon Kabat-Zinn also wrote, quote, "We are all mindful to one degree or another, moment by moment." While the scholarship continues to figure out the nuances and meaning of mindfulness, we can definitely benefit from the current insight into how mindfulness can contribute clarity well-being, and focus. Given the recent popularity of mindfulness as an alternative approach to medicine, numerous randomized control trials and other studies have been able to show some promising benefits from its practice in both the realms of physical health and mental health. Studies have shown, for example, that mindfulness can be particularly effective when it comes to stress. J. David Creswell, which is a name I'm sure some of you might be familiar with if you purchased the Creswell Research Design textbook, explained that mindfulness practices can develop the emotion regulation skill of, quote, learning how to monitor experience with acceptance. Through this skill, mindfulness allows you to build stress resilience and coping skills. The research available has also demonstrated that this stress buffering effect can promote positive health outcomes such as good immune system functioning, reduction in cold and flu symptoms, and even improved sleep. Mindfulness interventions have also shown to be particularly effective with depression and anxiety, according to the current evidence. The process behind this is centered around how mindfulness can cultivate a sense of acceptance and observant openness to your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. By being able to turn your awareness to these experiences, you can mitigate feelings of self-judgment and rumination that are often prompted by depression and anxiety. Cognitive abilities can also benefit from practicing mindfulness, as the process typically involves training your attention to some extent, such as noticing when your mind wanders, gently refocusing yourself on the task, sustaining your attention, and reducing distractions from your thoughts, emotions, and body. Many RCTs have shown that mindfulness can improve attention skills, memory, and problem-solving skills. Mindfulness techniques and practices come in a variety of different shapes and forms. Historically speaking, mindfulness in the Western world has been informed by a variety of Buddhist traditions and concepts. What we're talking about here is the varying influences of Zen Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, and Burmese Buddhist movements, as well as Thai movements. Each school of thought has come with different styles of practice and goals. Rather than emphasize one tradition over another, though, we can instead draw insight from them all to some extent, to discover the best path to becoming a more mindful researcher. So to start us off on practicing mindfulness, I'm actually going to have Sophia take over for a bit to introduce a fun way to acknowledge how we might already be engaging in mindfulness in our typical daily routines. I'll stop sharing, Sophia. So you
Awesome. Hey everyone, let me just say that was such a great presentation and introduction about what mindfulness is. And so the next part of this session is I'm gonna sort of share my screen to go over this activity that we're gonna have you all do to sort of, again, provide you a little bit more an introduction and further understanding of mindfulness. And you possibly might learn that, you might be engaging in mindfulness and not be aware of it. So with this activity, so can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So I think many of us are active on social media. So one of sort of the social media trends that I've seen is there's like a bingo type of trend going on. And so I decided to make this a little bit of a funner type activity. I sort of made like a mindfulness bingo. So what I want you guys to do to take a few minutes to sort of go through this bingo and either like mentally take note, or if you want, I think you can even slash them out on here. If you go through on the annotate on Ring Central, you'll see it up on the top right. You guys can annotate this yourselves. So if, like, for example, you wake up early, you could go ahead and just slash it and do that way too. And then we'll kind of go over at the end to see, how many each person is doing, and then kind of talk about, the different types of mindfulness activities that you can do that will help in being able to, be in the present moment. So just go ahead right now and take a few minutes to go through this bingo and see how many of these activities you're currently doing. And then we'll catch up after.
And to clarify where you can actually annotate, if you're looking at Sophia's screen, it'll say like you are viewing her screen. You can do the view options, and there's an annotate option where you can actually do a drawing thing.
Cool. So I'll give you like 1 more minute.
It's nice to see that everyone's doing quite a bit of mindful activities.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times like doing these activities, people, maybe you don't associate that you're engaging in mindfulness. So
Mhm.
hopefully with this activity, it kind of gives you a little bit of an overview of like, oh wow, I do stop for a second and take a really deep breath. Or if I feel really stressed out, I take a second to relax and then take 10 deep breaths. And sort of in those ways, those are sort of little activities that you can do already, or ones that you're doing already, as I can see that you're engaging in mindfulness. That's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Because some of the science has actually shown that uh, the feelings that you get from doing meditations or other types of like more formal mindful
Mm-hmm.
behaviors tend to mimic what you feel when you do these other types of activities, stuff that you normally wouldn't associate necessarily with mindfulness.
Yeah. And yeah, like you mentioned in your presentation, a lot of times people, when they think about like mindfulness or meditation, it's always associated with like you have to be a Buddhist or some sort of a religious practice. But a lot of times it's like simple acts like these that are similar in that way too, and being able to engage and be present in the moment. So yeah, I mean, like based on the responses that I see here, I definitely think that many like the y'all are really engaging in mindfulness already, and hopefully the ones that you haven't crossed out, they're possible ideas that you can implement if things get a little bit too stressful, or if you want to keep increasing and engaging in mindfulness in the future. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm really happy to see that you guys are engaging in that. But I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Matthew, who I believe will be going over a guided meditation at this point, I'm guessing.
Thanks, Sophia. Yeah, I'll share my end again. So yeah, and what we want to also go into is that, as Sophia's bingo activity demonstrates, is that you don't necessarily need to commit a whole lot of time and or energy to mindfulness, or at least that's one of the bigger barriers to people engaging in mindfulness that we've seen in the literature and just an everyday occurrence. That mindfulness can exist from moment to moment. So whenever you feel like there isn't enough time in the day to complete everything you need, perhaps take a step away from the work just for a moment and take part in one of the activities that Sophia illustrated. One of the other important things too is sometimes there's like most of the time there's no need to buy anything specific. There's no special access that you need to mindfulness. It's something that you can access almost anywhere at any time. But I do want to cover is how to begin a mindful routine for yourself, a more formalized way of doing it on a daily basis. And there's a few things to cover that you can start out with. First, the important underlying goal of being more mindful or practicing mindfulness is not necessarily that it's going to quiet your mind. It's more about training your mind to be able to pay attention to the present without judgment or being distracted by your thoughts and experiences or even your body to a point. Second, it's completely okay that your mind wanders, even during meditation. It's a basic human behavior. I'm sure that if you do practice meditation, you find that your mind will tend to wander towards deadlines or other pressures or other uh, priorities that you might have during the day. And so once you recognize your mind is wandering, simply and gently guide it back to the present moment, to the present task that you have. Uh, Basically, you want to be kind to your mind, not to punish it for doing something that is natural and just a basic human behavior. Um, so yes. So number three is another basic human behavior is judgments, and those are also normal. It's very easy and a very human thing to do of categorizing, labeling, naming things. Um, and putting associations to them, whether they are emotional, cognitive, physical. So what you really want to do is when they do happen, simply acknowledge them and notice how they make you feel mentally and physically. Put a note to it and then let them go. 4, position yourself whenever you're doing a mindfulness exercise in whatever way feels most comfortable or conducive to the process. 5, if need be, you can always set a time limit for yourself. So if you only have 10 minutes to spare during the day, you can easily put a timer of some sort, or yeah. So there's a couple of different exercises that I would like to cover. These are more informal, very quick exercises that you don't need to commit too much time to during the day. You can do it multiple times a day, depending on when you need them. And these are some useful exercises that you can incorporate into your life. A very popular and accessible exercise is mindful breathing. It's a way where you can practice focusing on a particular object, in this case, your breathing, for a sustained period of time. And you can practice this almost anywhere, anytime. You can devote as little or as much time to it as you need, even as little as 1 minute. And I kind of wanted to try it out together. So if you'd like to have me kind of guide you into it just for a minute, we can have you situate yourself in whatever way feels most comfortable right now. So take a moment just to settle in. You can stand, you can sit, you could lie on your back. The point is that we will remain still and focus on our breathing for 1 minute. Focusing on your breathing, breathe very slowly, in and out. Breathing in through your nose and then out through your mouth. Letting the breath enter and exit the body. As you breathe, allow yourself to let go of any lingering thoughts you may have. Let go of the things you need to do later today. Simply allow your thoughts to float on their own as you gently focus on your breath. Continue to observe your breath and notice how it travels into your body. Just being aware of how it feels, of how your body reacts with each breath. If at any time during this minute you notice your mind wandering, or if you feel tension in the body, acknowledge it as you take in a breath and then release the tension and refocus as you exhale. Feel free to take a few more breaths and feel free to return to this session. And if you'd like, feel free to put in a comment how you felt afterwards. Did you feel any different? Did you notice anything about how your mind worked during that exercise? Good. And cool. So once we're back from that mindful breathing exercise, we can continue. And actually, before I continue, because I always tend to forget, and luckily Sophia reminded me, is that we have a small survey, and I'm only sending this out just early on. That way it doesn't interrupt the flow of the rest of the exercises. Just in case you have any thoughts about the whole session, how we can improve, feel free to put anything in there. I put it in the chat just in case. And we'll send it out again afterwards, but figured it'd be useful to have. But yeah, so let's continue on. So that's one way you can do it. It's a very short exercise. You can do it as long or as short as you need. It's particularly effective if you just need 5 minutes away from the computer and just to concentrate on your breath, let go of any thoughts you may have, limit that kind of mental wandering, releasing that tension as you exhale. And then you can return to your task and keep working on it. So another one for more a auditory type of exercise is mindful listening. So, and in particular for this one, you can use it as a way of, you can practice this particular exercise through using music. So I, for one, personally, tend to listen to a lot of music, tend to listen to a lot of music while I'm doing research or working on a project of some kind to help motivate myself and keep me going. FYI, I typically listen to more kinds of like metal music in particular, but you probably have your own kind of music or genre or playlist that you use to help motivate yourself. But for our purposes right now, we want to use music as a way to help us with mindful listening, where you can train your mind and your body, particularly in this case with your ears, to be more aware of sounds with a non-judgmental openness. Many of us, I'm sure, myself included, have like certain preferences and dislikes for music based on our own experiences and preconceptions. Mindful listening can allow us to let go of those value judgments, which you can easily apply to your research process as well. So for those of you interested, I'll give you a moment to pick a song that you've never listened to, and we'll have you listen to it in your own private space. Just feel free to keep the mute button. It's just for your own personal exercise. As we engage in this for a few minutes, to help the process, I recommend picking the first song that gets recommended or selected by YouTube, Pandora, online radio, or another preferred platform. So I'll just give like 30 seconds or so, just so everyone's kind of prepared for that, and then we can play that song and go through that exercise. Again, you kind of want to pick one that you've never listened to. It could be something that you never would have imagined listening to, or just a song by a favorite artist that you haven't ever caught up with. Just as long as you don't know what it is. Okay, so playing the song, you can gently close your eyes if you'd like. Preferably, you can use headphones to limit any outside distractions. And as you listen to the song, let go of any thoughts or judgments, specifically about the genre, the lyrics, the title of the song, or the artist who created it. Any labels or names that you would normally associate, you would just let them go. Allow your mind instead to absorb the sounds, just the sounds, traveling through the ear. Even if you initially dislike the music, give yourself permission to become fully aware of the song, exploring the beats and the rhythm, allowing your mind to respond to the sounds. Again, no judgments, no thoughts, no thinking, just listening. You may then begin to gently notice the different instruments being used to create the sound or different sounds. Explore each instrument separately, discovering the unique sound that it is working to create and how it's harmonizing with the other instruments. You may then gently move your attention to the vocals. Focusing on the sound of the voice, the range, and the tones being achieved. Again, you don't need to think about the music itself. You only just need to hear it. And at this point, you can feel free to press pause on the song and allow yourself to come back to this session. I'll give a moment. And if you have any comments, again, feel free to put in the chat, like your experience with that. Was it good? Was it not that great? Not as effective as you thought? Or perhaps something that you want to look into further? Okay, then. So the first two exercises tend to focus more on like visualization of your breathing, a visual focus on it. And with mindful listening, obviously that focuses more on the auditory. If you're looking for a more kinesthetic or more movement-based exercise, this one might be the one for you. Instead of sitting or standing still, a mindful walking exercise might be a good technique to observe for yourself. You may have noticed already that your mind becomes a bit clearer during a walk or right after it, or it allows you to become lost and distracted, almost as if you're on autopilot. For this particular exercise, not only can you do it outside, but you can also do it inside your home. So if you'd like to follow me on this particular exercise, feel free, but I'll kind of outline how you would go about it. To intentionally start a mindful walking exercise, the first step is literally to take a step. Walk at a pace that is most natural or comfortable to you. Your hands can be positioned at your sides, behind your back, wherever you wish. If you'd like, you can count your steps up to 10, and then repeat. You may notice how your foot rises and falls with each step, paying attention to the movement. Notice also how the movement causes your whole body to react and to shift in response. If you feel your mind is wandering, guide it back to the act of walking, to the sensations. If you're outside or in your home, you might become aware of the physical environment around you. How does the ground feel beneath your feet? Are there smells of any kind present? How does the air feel against your skin? Listen for any sounds being made. You might notice any colors, objects, and people surrounding you. Just notice these sensations. Absorb them without labels or names, associations of any kind. If they do pop up in your mind, simply acknowledge them and let them go as you continue to observe the world and your body as it moves. Feel free to take a few more seconds, just being aware, being present. And when you wish, return to your awareness of your walking and your body. And if you wish to conclude the exercise, you would simply stand still for a moment, giving pause, and choosing when you would like to end the exercise. And I'll give you a few more seconds if you'd like, just to absorb the experience you just had, if you wish to have done so. Again, feel free to put any comments about your experience, and then we can move on. So I also understand that sleep can also be really hard to achieve for some people, myself included, especially after working on an assignment, a work project, or some form of research. You could engage in a brief sleep meditation exercise to start tuning out the deadlines and the pressures as you relax your body for sleep. So obviously we won't actually have you engage in this, but if you want to do some simulation of it, that's totally fine. So essentially, to begin this kind of exercise, you would make sure to dim the lights about an hour before you intend to sleep. Put away any and all electronic devices for the rest of the night to allow your eyes and your brain to relax and rest from the day's stimulation. Instead, do relaxing activities during this hour, such as petting your animal or listening to calming music. You would begin the focused mindfulness exercise about 10 minutes before you go to sleep. Sit on the bed or in a chair in a comfortable position Allow your mind to trace the outline of your body, noticing also the sensations and the pressures that your body feels against the chair or the bed. Acknowledging the areas that experience more pressure or tension, and also noticing the areas that feel less of that. Resting your attention first to what your head feels, then slowly working your way down mentally to your shoulders, your hands, your legs, and then finally your feet. And then if you'd like, you would do the same routine going up your body. And again, as with any of these other exercises, if you find your mind wandering, be kind to it and gently reorient it back into the meditation until you're ready to sleep. And perhaps the most important thing is not to force yourself to sleep, as those type of thoughts can often lead to stress. Let go of all thoughts, including the thought of going to sleep. So these quick, more informal exercises can be pretty helpful to people who are not initially familiar or comfortable with the idea of mindfulness and its practice, or people who may not think they have enough time in the day. Again, as it kind of illustrates, is like you only need 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, even 1 minute. And it can also be a really useful introduction over time when you want to engage in more advanced meditation practices. It helps to train your mind to get into that kind of mindset of embracing meditation. A common form of meditation is the body scan, for example. The body scan is essentially a practice that allows you to become more aware and attentive by focusing on your body. These meditations are typically 20 to 40 minutes long, and you can find countless guided meditations available online for free. In fact, John Kabat-Zinn has a 45-minute guided meditation on body scanning. It's available free on YouTube. Just for the purpose of our session, though, I'd like to engage us in a quick body scan meditation that should only take a few minutes as more of an introduction into what that kind of process is. So again, allow you to take a moment to position yourself in whatever way feels most comfortable to you. In this particular meditation, you can sit, you can lie down on your back, anything that's most comfortable. You may also wish to close your eyes during this meditation or focus on an object in your space. So let's begin by gently placing our attention to the body. Notice how your body is positioned in your space, feeling the stillness and subtle shifts in your body. Take a few deep breaths. With each intake of breath, feeling the air come into the body and feeling a sense of relaxation falling head to your toes as you exhale. And as you do so, you can gently rest your focus on your feet. Notice the sensations that your feet are experiencing as they touch the floor. You may feel the weight, the pressure on the soles. Perhaps you feel vibrations or some kind of heat. You may then raise your attention to the legs. What are they sensing? Do they feel light? or perhaps heavy? What are the sensations being felt on your back? Is your back pressing against a wall or the floor? If you notice your back is stiff or tense, give yourself permission to relax as you continue to breathe. How's your chest? Does it feel tense or tight as well? Let it soften with your next breath. You may then wish to reorient your attention to your hands. Let your fingers spread and loosen, the tension melting away. How do your arms feel? Do you notice any tension in the muscles? Allow the pressures on your shoulders to ease and lift away. You may allow this sense of ease to move to your neck and jaw, noticing the muscles and lines of your face, feeling them relax. Take a deep breath. Now we will give awareness to the entirety and the wholeness of your body, giving appreciation to all of its sensations. Again, no judgments and no thoughts, no labels, no names. Take one more deep breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and we can return to this session. Again, if you have any comments about any of these exercises, feel free to put them in the chat or even in the survey that I sent out on the chat. Mindfulness has been uniquely positioned to benefit greatly from the digital age as well. Something that I want to highlight because a brief browse through the internet reveals a plethora of mindfulness-based online programs and products with millions of active users. And with that said, I'm going to have Sophia take over once more with another activity where we can discover some of these free mindfulness apps available on the internet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matthew. That was really, really awesome sort of activities that you went through. And surprisingly, I wasn't really familiar with the body scan meditation. I'd heard about it, but I'd never actually tried it. And so trying it, it's definitely something that I hope to implement in my everyday life too. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen once again with y'all. Awesome. So the second part of this bingo activity is to sort of just provide you guys with more additional resources, as Matthew had mentioned, free apps to a certain extent, obviously, where you guys can continue to engage in mindfulness type activities. So I'm not really sure how familiar you guys are with most of these apps, but if you see some that you're familiar with and you've tried out, that's super cool. You might see some on here that maybe you're not too familiar with. But one of the few that I have come to use sort of more in my everyday life is Headspace. So this one provides a lot more on guided meditation if you're really into that. That's one that I've been using a lot. And they also go through a lot of deep breathing exercises as well. And then another one that I'm sure is probably more on the popular end in regards to apps is probably the Calm app. You guys have heard of that one as well. That one also, they provide a variety of exercises that are free, which is really cool, like deep breathing exercises, guided meditations of those sorts. You'll also find them on this app. So if you guys want to go ahead and maybe just use the annotate pen again and sort of cross out any sort of the apps you currently use, just to sort of get an idea. So I'm curious. Nice. So the person in yellow, I can see that you're really you're utilizing mindfulness a lot. So that's super cool. Yeah. So that's funny. But yeah, so like again, if through this session, we hope that, first thing that you kind of, if you don't know what mindfulness is, hopefully you have a better idea of what it is. And hopefully through the really cool exercises that Matthew went through, of the variety of exercises you can do to engage in mindfulness, we'll encourage you to look into some of these apps that you're utilizing or you're thinking about utilizing, and being able to sort of make mindfulness more a permanent thing that you do, sort of a part of your lifestyle. And so to get access to these, I will be sending out this bingo to your email addresses after the session, and you'll be able to just click on them. So if there's an app that you find you're really interested in, you can go ahead and just click on it. But yeah, hopefully this provides you with more resources and ways to be able to engage in mindfulness to make it more a permanent thing. But I'll go ahead and hand it back to Matthew.
Awesome. Thanks, Sophia. So yeah, I hope these exercises and the resources we're trying to highlight are useful to you. It's something that can be pretty accessible. That was kind of the main goal of this session, of providing not necessarily easy, but just make it much more convenient and much more accessible and much more flexible to your own schedules as students, as emerging professionals, and so on. So now, as a conclusion to our session, I'll be guiding us through a short meditation, guided meditation. In my experience, I have encountered many students, faculty, and professionals who express uncertainty, distress, and difficulty with finding relevant evidence and information when conducting their research. So this meditation is tailored to guide you towards relaxation and focus, and hopefully insight into searching the scholarly literature, or a renewed sense of inquiry and curiosity and discovery. This video, or not this video, this session was to help you further understand how mind and body work together in the research process. And in particular, this guided meditation will be about developing a research question, to locating empirical sources, and to fully utilizing all the resources available to you, and to reduce that kind of distress and anxiety that comes understandably through that process. So, as with our previous exercises, feel free to find a private, comfortable place, free from all kinds of distractions that you might find. You can rest your focus on this particular image if you'd like. You can gently close your eyes, or perhaps you would like, again, to rest your eyes on a single point in your space. Situate yourself in whatever way feels most comfortable and conducive. You can rest your hands on your knees. You may like to sit down, legs crossed, or perhaps lie on your back. Let's begin by focusing on your breathing, noticing how your chest and abdomen rise and fall. Take a full breath in, and the long breath out. Notice how the air courses throughout the entirety of your body as you inhale. and leaves gently as you exhale. You do not need to control your breathing. We are just continuing to breathe in this moment. We are simply allowing it to come into the body and then out. If you ever find yourself feeling distracted or scattered by thought, revisit this feeling of your entire body expanding with a breath and then releasing it. Your body swells with each inhale and rests with every exhale. As you continue to feel your breathing, notice also how a research question can be thought of as a string of key concepts and syntax. The question begins the process of your search through the scholarly literature. It provides focus, guiding you to the information that you need. You don't have to develop or have a research question in this moment. Just be aware of the fact the research question will allow you to anchor you in the process. In this present moment of deep relaxation, we can now consider the process of searching the scholarly literature. Our initial conceptions may characterize the process as difficult or redundant. Our imagination may call up past experiences where we believed our research skills to be lacking. We may feel that such imaginings require us to hide our preconceived shortcomings. Do not judge yourself if you have anxiety, stress, or self-doubt. Simply acknowledge them as we begin to gently let them go. Breathe in, allowing the weight of your research question to sink into your mind and body. Breathe out, the weight of academia lifting off your shoulders. Allow your research question to gently dismantle with each breath into its core PICO components. You may know that PICO is an excellent technique to isolate your question into key concepts: population, intervention, comparison, outcome. Who is the patient at the center of your question? How would you describe them? Gently consider their health needs, demographics, and other important characteristics. What is the problem that you seek to gain better understanding from the evidence? What is the treatment or therapeutic intervention that you are exploring for the patient's benefit? Do you have a specific outcome in mind for the patient after receiving this treatment? As you contemplate the possible answers to these questions and how they best suit your research focus, notice the keywords that emerge, take note of them, and reflect later how they might become useful terms to guide your search. We may feel anxious or frustrated as we consider the vast possibilities of our literature search. You may notice the various databases available through the library, filled with abundance of information. Visualize the hundreds of thousands of academic journals that exist online. It can be difficult to decide where to start searching and when to stop. You are not alone. We all experience this present moment. So long as we do not judge ourselves or others for having these doubts, we can discover and share knowledge along the journey. Breathe in, research, and out. Bring this awareness of breath and empirical energies with you into your everyday academic life. And now, we will begin to ascend from this present moment of serenity and clarity with 5 brief statements. You may wish to say them aloud or privately in your mind. 1. I am more aware of my breathing. 2. I am more aware of my research question. 3. I am more aware of PICO. 4. I am a more mindful researcher. 5. I will take these skills and accepting attitude towards my research. And as you wish, you may rejoin the session. And this is kind of a conclusion to it. So I do thank you for joining us.